One of the interesting things about starting the Council of Dads was that it forced me to sit down with my closest friends and tell them what they meant to me. And it ended up being this fascinating journey into the world of contemporary men. And as I went back for my book and looked at both my grandfather's life and my father's life, I began to see that the men in my council were by and large, I would say, more communicative than their own dads. And the things that we talked about, like our feelings and our fears, even our weight, I mean, as Linda said, it's exactly what the moms are talking about at school drop-off. And this whole journey ended up being a kind of window into the world of male friendship. And no one embodies this kind of modern American male to me more than David Black. David is my literary agent, and the first time I met him, he was sitting in his office in Manhattan. So David, you have to understand, is 5'3.5" on a good day, standing upright in cowboy boots. And he took one look at my 6'2" body and announced, "If I were your height, I'd be in the NBA." Self-delusion is a wonderful thing. So on the modern male front, David is very much of a manly man. And I don't know if I can say this, it's not really in school, and I'm not in a church like I was last week. He answers the phone, "Yo, motherfucker." He gives very boring speeches about obscure bottles of wine. And on his 50th birthday, he bought himself a convertible sports car. Actually, like a lot of men, he's impatient. He bought it on his 49th. But on the womanly man front, he leaves work early to coach Little League. He hugs. He bakes. I mean, someone asked me if David cried when I invite him to be in my Council of Dads. I was like, David cries when you invite him to take a walk. Now, being an agent, being a literary agent, is to be a broker of dreams in a world in which most dreams don't come true. And it's this aspect of David, his finesse at handling the aspirations and setbacks of his clients, that Linda and I wanted him to convey to our girls. David would teach them how to dream. So I went to see David. I said, okay, what's the most important thing you can give to a dreamer? The belief in themselves, he said. Okay, fine, but the first time I came to meet you, I didn't believe myself. I had been writing books for years, and I was at a wall. I don't see the wall, he said. And I'm telling you the same. Don't see the wall. Of course, you may encounter a wall from time to time, but I'm telling you, we have to find a way to get over it, around it, under it, or through it. Whatever you do, don't succumb to it. Don't give in to the wall. So it's 20 years from now, I said. One of my daughters plops down on your chair and she says, I have a dream. I want to climb a mountain or open a restaurant or write a book. What do you tell her? He said, let's find a way to make the awesome mundane. Let's make a roadmap to the top of the mountain, a business plan for the restaurant, an outline for the book. And if that dream should fail, I said, then I'll tell her, let's find a dream that can work, he said. Because anybody can dream an impossible dream, but only a few find a dream that's possible. And those are the ones that are happy. The process of sitting down with these men and coming up with this Council of Dads was very unexpected in many ways. So we ended up, by the end of my journey, with my oldest friend, my camp counselor, my college roommate, my business partner, a close confidant. But Linda kept saying through this whole process that there's one part of you that's missing. It's the part of you that travels and that brings back Bedouin carpets and African masks from your travels. The part of you that sees life in color, not black and white. Joshua Ramo ultimately filled that part. Joshua grew up in New Mexico, and he's sort of the little brother of the group. He's the one who is unruly and lets his hair grow a little wild and disappears on a motorcycle for 2 years and shows up at Thanksgiving with a beard just when mom thinks he's finally cleaned himself up. He looks like a cross between James Dean and Steve Jobs. In fact, a few weeks ago, he's, I have to say, astonishingly handsome. And a few weeks ago, we had all the dads together for a photo shoot for a magazine, and we all paraded through. I went, each of the dads went, the girls went, even, I dare say, Linda went to sat in the hair and makeup section, right? So they did our hair, they did our makeup, so we looked good. Josh is the last one. He sits down in the chair, and again, I'm not making this up. The makeup guy takes one look and says, I can't improve that. Now, Josh is the only one of the group that's actually not a dad, and this has kind of been a problem because the other dads have at least a sense of responsibility. So Josh came to our house last year to go trick-or-treating, and it's the end of the night, and the girls have gorged themselves on candy, and we're trying to get them into the bath to brush their teeth and go to bed. And as we're trying to get them up the stairs, I look back, and Josh is palming chocolate bars from the trick-or-treat bag and handing them to the girls. So he's going to be rebellion dad, and frankly, he needs a lot more supervision than our girls do on many occasions. But this is what we wanted Josh to teach them, what it's like to travel, what it's like to, on the one hand, dress up and be responsible, on the other hand, don, as he does, a bomber jacket and go volunteer at the AIDS hospice in Africa. Josh would teach them how to see. So I went to see, when I was feeling better from my chemo, Josh in New Mexico, when he took me to the top of this mountain. And he said, I brought you here because a father's job is to teach his child how to grow up. And this is where I grew up. And I love my dad, but it's the New Mexico wilderness that taught me to be who I am today. So how do you teach that to a child, he said. I would teach them to appreciate beauty by teaching them to memorize Auden poems or Shakespeare's sonnets. So wherever they go in the world, they have beautiful words as a companion for an afternoon. I would teach them to listen to Mahler symphonies so they can have this music playing with them wherever they go. I would teach them to enjoy Chinese calligraphy and to understand that if there's any doubt in your mind, your hand will shake and the beauty will disappear. I told Josh a story that a few weeks earlier we'd been on the airplane tarmac in Savannah flying back to New York. And for 2 hours we were trapped on this tiny plane as rain showers belted the area. And inside the plane, everyone was becoming more and more tense and more frustrated. And after 2 hours, the rain stopped, the clouds parted, and the most beautiful storybook rainbow I've ever seen appeared in the sky. And Eden, who was sitting next to me, looked down and said, "Oh my God, it's a rainbow, our first real life rainbow. We've never seen a rainbow. Tybee, look, it's a rainbow. I can hardly stand it." And the entire plane burst into applause. That's what I'm talking about, Josh said. There are miracles around us every day. We just have to learn that sometimes it takes a cloudy situation to make us realize we have to go out and harvest them. Our home is not far from the Brooklyn Bridge. And during the year and a half that I was on crutches, it became a sort of symbol to me. And one day near the end of my last year, I said, "Come on, girls, let's take a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge." So we set out. I was on crutches. Linda was next to me. Our girls were moving ahead, doing these sort of Mick Jagger-like rock star poses they had just mastered. And because walking is the first thing I lost when I got sick, I spent a lot of time during this year contemplating this very simple act. Walking upright is the thing that most distinguishes humans from our ancestors. And yet for the 4 million years that humans have been walking, the act is essentially unchanged. As my physical therapist likes to say, every step is a tragedy waiting to happen. You stumble with one leg, then you catch yourself with the other. And the simplest consequence of walking on crutches is that you walk slower. Hurry. You get to where you're going, but you get there alone. Go slow. You get where you're going, but you get there with this community you've developed along the way. At the risk of admission, I was never nicer than when I was on crutches. In the 1840s in Paris, a new type of pedestrian appeared. He was called a flaneur, one who ambled the arcades. And it was a mark of the leisure that these men enjoyed, that they would take a turtle for a walk and let the reptile set the pace. I love this ode to slow moving, and it became a motto from me to my girls. Take a walk with a turtle. Behold the world in pause. And every now and then, stop entirely. We got to the top of the bridge, and there were pedestrians and bikers milling about. Noon on Saturday was rush hour on the Brooklyn Bridge. And we sat down, and I pulled open my knapsack and pulled out a surprise for my girls. They reached in and pulled out a tablecloth, 4 cups, 4 saucers, and a tea kettle. And just after midday, with Lady Liberty to our right and the Statue of Liberty to our left, Lady Liberty to our right and the Empire State Building, to our left, for no other reason than we'd reached the end of a long year, we clinked our glasses, tilted our kettle, and held a tea party on top of the world. This idea of pausing may be the single biggest lesson I've taken from my experience.